he was talking about, I quit smoking. He was telling me how he quit smoking. It was hard. It was really hard to quit, and I did it. And fucking smoking's terrible for you. So we land. He walks as fast as he can off the plane right into one of those stores and buys a pack of cigarettes. And he's opening up it, and he's got one in his mouth as he's out the door.
He went off for an hour about how it's terrible for you. He's so glad he's out over it.
So I'm outside with him. I go, what are you doing? I thought you quit smoking. He goes, yeah, but all that fucking talking about it, I wanted a cigarette.
So was he being funny, or was he just a weirdo?
No. He was just a genius. His brain was just wired different.
Yeah.
It was just wired different. He's a genius comic, though.
Genius.
Goddamn. He was so unique in
comic.
the way he expressed himself, how he was really thinking. Like the way he would say something fucked up to you in the green room, he would say the exact same thing on stage. It was just
really?
And he would say, he had this way of looking at things that was absolutely unique to him.
If you have been listening to all the great podcasts by stand-ups lately, you will notice a theme. They all really support each other. Regardless of which comedian's name is brought up, you inevitably hear them say, he or she is the greatest, who is funnier than that person, and that they absolutely love that comedian. And while it's genuine and authentic, you can just tell when they truly mean what they are saying. There's a different way they speak about the funniest of all time, the originals, the ones that they respect and admire. And these comedians are the legends of stand-up comedy. Here are some comedians talking about the legend that is Norm Macdonald.
Whenever he killed in these early years, when the show was over, he'd just hide, or he'd just go in the green room and sit there. But if he bombed, which Norm is the kind of comic who, like every other show, because he literally, he just didn't care. People say that, and they're lying.
No, he really genuinely
didn't care. I mean, watch his roast, watch his talk show appearances. He doesn't give a fuck. When he bombed, which was like semi-regularly, he would wait in the hallway to shake audience members' hands so that they had to see him again. So they're leaving. He's like, how you doing? Hi.
That is the most gangster move.
Yeah, it totally is.
Really one of the best comedy minds of all time. I remember Colin Quinn told me a story once that, one of my favorite musicians ever, Leonard Cohen, being a Canadian, would go see Norm Macdonald play.
Whoa.
And Norm was like, who's this guy? Who's this old guy? He didn't care that Leonard Cohen was a Norm Macdonald fan.
Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah. His gambling stories on Howard Stern are incredible. I read his book. I've seen everything he's done. This is
Dirty Work is a great comedy.
I love Dirty Work. I met him once at the Cellar, and I got a photo with him, and now I'm so glad I did. He did Last Comic Standing. He was the only honest judge. He would tell comics they were hacks. It was awesome.
One of those books is a classic about a man who has sacrificed himself for the good of the world, and the other is the Bible. Do you know what I'm saying, people?
Roseanne, what are your thoughts on Harris?
I mean, the stuff you're talking about, Bible jokes, that's some brave
I disagree. I don't think the Bible joke is brave at all. I think if you're going to take on an entire religion, you should maybe know what you're talking about. J.K. Rowling is a Christian, and J.K. Rowling famously said that if you're familiar with the scriptures, you could easily guess the ending of her book.
Huh?
Okay.
I don't like it.
Dude, as far as like people to go down a rabbit hole, for me, it's him, Norm Macdonald, Patrice. There's like three of them you can just kind of go down, and it's just so different and fresh and unique. And I thought there was a lot of similarity as far as what they did, Patrice and Norm. I thought there was a lot of similarity. It's brutal, dude. That guy was just he's such a nice guy, too. He's such a nice guy, and just, I thought, just so mentally beyond all of us.
We just found out that Norm Macdonald passed away. Oh, my God. I love Norm Macdonald.
I don't know what to say.
Me either. Oh, I'm just heartbroken.
Jesus.
I love Norm, and I've worked with him many times. Do you know Norm?
Yeah, we worked together on Last Comic Standing. I took the job because I wanted to work with Norm Macdonald, but I was thrilled to be able to work with Norm Macdonald and get to know him a little bit. Huge influence on me of just, if you believe in the joke, the audience doesn't have to necessarily.
Right.
Because you get it. Like his Weekend Update was
amazing,
legendary to me, and just one of the greatest of all time.
I had no idea that he was even sick. and I was such a huge fan of his, and I would just always end up running into him, and he just always had that smile on his face. Like, as you talk to him, he would have that smile. Just a really great, warm guy.
Yeah, Norm got me. He reached out when I was getting canceled a lot.
Really?
Yeah, and he said some really cool things.
So
he's the best.
I posted about him when he got in trouble, and he reached out to me and was like, I'll share with you privately.
He loved comedy, and
he was the purest. He was the purest comic.
When people were going through it, Norm was one of the guys that would always reach out. Yeah, that was it. Just reached out. He sent me some cool stuff about like funny will win.
Yeah.
That was the coolest shit ever. And it ended, one of the messages ended with like, in a war for comedy, I think the ones with jokes will win. I was just like, yo.
Yeah.
That's fire.
Norm Macdonald is king.
Yeah. So now I'm sitting there thinking I'm going to get fired. And I'm just like, oh my God, I didn't even make it to the first episode. They're going to let me go. So this is what's going on in my head. They asked Norm, they go, Norm, you, Tim Meadows, David Spade, you've been here. You know the frat house. Everyone knows SNL is a frat house. What kind of practical jokes you got lined up for these new cast members? I swear to you, I went, I'm not even going to be part of the frat house or the practical jokes. Damn. And Norm goes, first of all, he's annoyed. He goes, practical jokes? Is that what you asked? What kind of practical jokes? Well, first we were thinking about anal rape. You know? Like, hey, yeah, take your pen. We're going to anally rape you. Welcome to Saturday Night Live. I'm going, oh, shit. He's going to get fired, too. Yeah. You can't say anal rape in front of the press? Yeah. He said anal rape.
So suddenly you're like, I'm back in this.
I'm in it.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good. And I went up to him after. I went, Nori's like, they don't give it. No one gives a shit, bro. Fuck these guys. Yeah. And I realized he would pitch at the pitch meeting. He just didn't care. He didn't care. And I learned so much from him. I remember he gathered the new cast up. He's like, I swear to God, he goes, hey, don't write me any of your gay sketches.
I hung out with him a couple times. The Irvine one was the time I got really high with him. And Ryan's always got good weed.
Yeah.
And he had some crazy sticky shit, and he was like, you want to smoke? I thought Norm was going to be like, I'm about to go on stage, which he was. And he was like, yeah. I was like, you're going to smoke right? I was like, you're going to smoke right now? Because that was like so scary to me to get that high right before. He packed this bowl. Norm hit it, took a monster hit.
I watched him take a monster hit off of
coughed
Rogan one time.
So hard, tear came down his face. You know, like when you're coughing that hard. And I was like, this is going to be bad. You know? I took a hit because I was watching him. We weren't performing that night. The show's already started. And I had that, like, you know, that anxiety of like a 5-year comic, and he's a 30-year guy at the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you got to get in there? He's like, huh. You know. I'm like, how you gotta get in there? Yeah, it's all I could think about. I was like, you got to get in there, man. Yeah. And he's smoking, talking, you know. And then I thought I told you this. We walk from the parking lot. We walk in the front, and then there's the showroom doors, and then there's the pathway down. Dude, it's like a movie. And as the showroom doors open, they're like, Norm Macdonald. He's got on this leather blazer on, and he's holding a Coke, twist-off Coke.
Yeah.
And he just walks up there, and you know, place goes, it was packed. And he's like, yeah, you know, some people drink Sprite. It's fucking gross. And he just fucking, it's like talking like that, like just off the top of his head about how gross Sprite is.
God.
And murdering. And then Ryan and I are in the back. We're like, holy shit. And we're like, we're so high. He's got to be so high right now. So high. And he's up there just killing, man.
Norm makes me laugh hard.
Dude, hold on, I'll tell you a thing about Norm.
Hard.
So he did this thing one time. He gets up to go from one room into another room, right? He stops at the doorway and he's like, what is this? What is this? And he's like banging on the door, like just the doorway. He's like, well, what is like a portal to like another? What is this? And he's literally asking the people in the room, right? What do you call this thing? It's like a portal to what? How do you just go through? Where am I? And he was just talking about a doorway, but it was so...
He makes anything funny.
Yeah.
It's right as his Netflix show is about to air, and he gets in big trouble because he's on Stern.
No. Hold on. Start it over. He defends Louis first.
Okay, yeah.
Louis
yeah.
and Roseanne. And Louis Roseanne. Then he goes on Stern.
And when he's on Stern, instead of saying like you'd have to be retarded to laugh at this or to think this, he'd be like, you'd have to have Down syndrome. So he keeps saying
he thinks that's better because he thinks Down syndrome is okay to say, but retarded is bad because it's the R word.
Right.
So he's like,
pinpoints.
So he says it a bunch, and they're about to launch the show. So of course, everybody involved is like panicking. Like, you need to make it clear you have a new show launching. You got it. So he goes on The View and he's like, he's like, I'm not, like, you can mute this and watch this. He is eating mints, like and popping them in his mouth.
Joe, he's literally eating mints
and shaking. It's like shaking them in his hand. He's like, I feel real bad about that. And he's like,
why would I talk about Louis? I've never even had consensual sex with a girl. And they're like, Norm, you've never had consensual sex with a girl? He goes, why would I? And they're like, no, but I think you're misspeaking, Norm.
So many people pretend that they don't give a fuck, both in my business and in other businesses. I don't give a fuck. Hey, you know me. I don't give a fuck. Those people that advertise them. Like, that guy clearly, in the best way, didn't give a fuck. He really cared about people and stuff, but like he did what he wanted to do. And when he was on SNL, how big a gig that was, because there was so few channels. The internet hadn't blown up yet. And even with basic cable and everything, I mean, it was still, if you were on Saturday Night Live and you were doing Weekend Update, it was one of the most coveted gigs a comedian could have. And no one's walking away from that job. And if some suit at NBC tells you they don't like the jokes you're doing and be funnier, you're shaking in your... I'd be like, oh, fuck, I'm going to lose this big gig. I don't want to get fired. I don't want to piss these people off or whatever. I guess he was doing all those OJ jokes, and somebody... I forget how the story went. There was somebody there that knew OJ or something and was telling Norm to back off and move on to something else. So what does Norm do? He just doubles down and he just does even more OJ jokes, which is like, the balls that took to do that. And he ended up losing the gig. He got fired. And people loved him and he was fucking hilarious, but he didn't back down to the big fucking guy over there, and he ended up losing the gig. So, as luck would have it, I think it was Dirty Work, came out like a year and a half later. So he has to promote it, and he's on the press thing. So Lauren has him back and has him host the show. And I remember he went out there, and his opening joke, he just comes out. And he was just like, I actually got fired from this show about a year and a half ago because they said I wasn't funny. And now here I am. I'm hosting the show. So that means one of two things. Either I got a lot funnier or this show sucks. And then he had that big shit-eating grin on his face, and he started laughing. And then he proceeded to do a bunch of OJ jokes.
If you tell him not to say something, it's like us. I guess he was the purest version of don't say this. And then he would find the most brilliant way to do it. He was a wordsmith also. He loved wordplay. And there was a brilliance to him that was really quite singular.
Norm really was brilliant. I mean, not just his stand-up, but I mean, an edgy, underappreciated Weekend Update anchor.
Oh, the best. Easily the best Weekend guy. But he would come in and he would bomb a lot. He would have jokes that the audience would be like, oh, he had this one great joke. He's like, something, women are bad drivers. And they went, oh, and he went, well, I want you to know a woman wrote that joke. And they went, oh, and he went, I'm kidding, we don't hire women. You're like, yeah, that's a comic.
Who are safer drivers, men or women? Well, according to a new survey, 55% of adults feel that women are most responsible for minor fender benders, while 78% blame men for most fatal crashes. Please note that the percentages in these pie graphs do not add up to 100% because the math was done by a woman. For those of you hissing at that joke, it should be noted that that joke was written by a woman. So now you don't know what the hell to do, do you? No, I'm just kidding. We don't hire women.
Norm, we love your comedy. He was a good human being. He was somebody that I think we're all going to miss.
100%. I mean, one of the greatest of all time. But I think he went out on his own terms, and I think that's kind of what made him a legend. You know, the fact that he never had the huge hit sitcom, he didn't become Seinfeld, I think added to his legend. That I think he had an amazing career, and his comedy output is unparalleled. That he'll never be forgotten.
And I remember one time Norm walked back into the studio to visit. I don't remember how old his son was at the time, but his son was young, and someone said, "Hey, Norm, how's being a dad?" And he said, "It's going great, still no abductions." That's the first thing I ever heard him say in person.
Norm Macdonald, you'd hang out with him, and you'd get whatever he said to you, but then he'd disappear.
Right.
And he wasn't on podcasts. He wasn't on fucking Instagram. I would have loved to have had more interactions with Norm. And the ones I had, I think, are great. I want to talk about Norm, Bob, because I know that you love Norm, and I fucking love Norm. I think Norm's maybe an American treasure.
He is one of the funniest people alive, I think.
Ever.
Yeah. And Norm is regarded by most funny people to be one of the funnier people alive. And we've had some real interesting shit happen together. It's, I made Dirty Work, so that's a year with Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
This is the first time me touring with a star.
Okay.
We go to the airport and people are like, "Oh my God, you're Norm Macdonald." I'm like, wow, this is everywhere we went. "Oh my God, you're Norm Macdonald." We show up at the university. He's like, I got to go golfing with the fucking governor tomorrow. They want me to fucking golf. Fucking governor.
Yeah, what is that game where you fucking hit the
right?
thing?
So I'm like, he's with a governor. This is huge. Who gets to say that? And so we get to the gig and is packed. And they go, "Now listen, there's kids here and there's students and alum and the dean and all these people here. So
that's the worst."
And I'm like, "Yeah, clean. I get it. No worries." I go, we're in Sunny Lake. He goes, "That's why we got you guys, because you're used to live TV." Blah, blah. So Daryl goes up first, does his 20 minutes, does impressions, does his comedy. Hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I go up, do my 20, feel great, crush it. Norm goes up. I'm not even exaggerating. The first thing he says, he goes up, he goes, it's like, "I'm preparing." I'm like, "This is going to launch my career. Are you kidding me? This is going to be huge. I'm going to be all." He goes, fucking, where the fuck are we? First person to even curse. Right? I went, "Oh, shit, he cursed." And he goes, "So, if you're gay, would you rather be the ass guy or the dick guy?" This is what he starts off with. So I go, "Daryl, you gotta come see this." And he's going, and he won't stop. He's like,
Daryl's just being depressed in the back.
Because if you're the ass guy, why do you want to be the ass guy? First of all, he's going on. People are grabbing their kids, running up the aisle. I never saw a place clear out. It looked like a fire alarm was going off. But the college students were staying, and they were howling with laughter. And one thing, and then in the middle, after about 15 minutes, he goes, "Jesus Christ, what do you want to do? You want fucking airplane jokes? You want fucking 7-Eleven jokes? Jesus Christ, fuck out of here." So the next day, in the paper, USA Today or the Gazette, they're like, "Norm Macdonald's out.
Wow.
Governor wants him out of the state.
Governor wants him.
Get out of my state."
He describes the most basic shit that we all know, but it's funny because he points it out. Like his Letterman set, the last Letterman, when he goes, Germany decided to attack the world, and you're like, that's so true. And then he goes, "Who do you think you are, Mars?" I mean, it's just so funny, those little things where he's just telling you facts and it's funny.
He just states the obvious as loud as he can.
In January 7th, if you look it up, January 7th, 1998, he did the Letterman show. That is the day that he got fired from Weekend Update.
Right.
And he wouldn't say anything negative. Letterman did many, many times to him in his face. But he first of all, he was fired. He still showed up and did this appearance. You know, if you got fired off your main event, I doubt you would want to
promote it
and be out in public.
Right.
And that's all they talked about. And he would not say, you know, Letterman was going, what kind of idiot would fire you? No, he's a very nice man. He was a nice man. He just didn't like he would not besmirch the guy that made
class act.
The most.
Well, I'm glad you folks are in a great mood tonight. Our first guest is one of the funniest men working in television today. He is the anchor of Weekend Update on the popular Saturday Night Live program. Please welcome Norm Macdonald. Norm! You don't mind if I ask you a question?
What's that?
I hear this story, and there's like this press release, you get your ass fired. Is that true? No, you didn't get fired.
Yeah, they fired me.
No, they didn't fire you.
No, I'm serious. I talked to a guy that said I'm fired from on the weekend. You know, I do the news segment.
Yeah, the Weekend Update.
Yeah, and I do the jokes.
Sometimes, many times, the best part of the show.
It's all a matter of opinion. That's your opinion.
It's my opinion, yeah.
But then the guys that can fire me, that's not their opinion.
Now, why would they fire you?
Well,
who fired you, first of all? Let's get some names here. Let's get this on the record.
Well, I don't know the guys, because the guys I work with, like Lorne Michaels and stuff.
Did Lorne Michaels fire you?
No, he did. He didn't fire me.
Right.
He likes me and stuff. They're NBC. What happens is you work on the show, and then there's these guys that hang out, like, in the halls.
Yeah, we got them here. We got them here.
And they're called executives. They're NBC executives, right? And then I'd see them. I didn't know who the hell they were, what they did, you know? Now I know what they do. They fire me from Weekend Update. They said that this guy, Don Ohlmeyer, who turns out to be the president.
Yeah, now I know Don Ohlmeyer, and just between you and me, he's an idiot.
Oh. No, I phoned him, you know. And then, so he goes, oh, yeah, I'm firing you there from the show. And then I said, oh, that's not good. You know? And then I said, why is that now? And he goes, oh, you're not funny.
Yeah.
And then I said, holy Lord, that's even worse news, you know? He goes, no, I don't got nothing to fall back on. No. He's a good man.
Well, he just fired you. What do you mean he's a good... What is wrong with you? You quisling? Stop that.
I don't know what quisling means, but I mean, to me, like, you know, you have to be philosophical about these things. I mean, at first, like, when I found out, you know, I was upset, but then, you know, I really started to think about it, you know, and plus I drank a lot of whiskey. But then the next day I sobered up and I remembered, you know, that I still had some whiskey left.
If the guy says to you, we don't want you on the Weekend Update, and that's like your signature piece.
Yeah.
You're kind of like the anchor man, not only of that segment, but of the entire Saturday Night Live show. If things aren't going great, they give the ball to you. You're the damn quarterback, Norm. You're the one who punches it over the goal line for pay dirt. So now,
well, I mean,
if Mr. Big Shot Cologne and Cufflinks, Don Ohlmeyer, if he says, we don't want you on the Weekend Update, adios. I'd get in a cab. Absolutely. Hit the dirt. Come on over here to CBS. We'll get you a nice show. We'll put you to get a nice show for you.
All right.
You're no quisling.
I've never been called that.
Well, now, will you stay on the rest of the show?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay. Like, I do also, other than doing an update, I do like sketches, but like I stink in those. So that, you know, he thinks I'm funny in those.
Yeah. Oh, it's just the Weekend Update. He doesn't think you're funny.
Yeah, he doesn't think I'm funny in Weekend Update, and God only knows. I mean, you know. It's just a matter of opinion. He also thinks that O.J. is innocent. So.
Exactly. Don't let this pinhead push you around, for heaven's sakes.
No, he's not a pinhead.
You don't like it because he's a dope.
No, it's just you know what I've always said is, I've said comedy is subjective. Mm-hmm. I never really said that before.
I didn't think. Norm, you're very, very funny. You're like the strength of that franchise. Are you getting some support from the rest of the cast members?
Well, you know, the people on the cast, like, they go, you know, when you work at a place, you know, some people like you, some people hate you. But
oh yeah, you don't need to tell me that.
So, you know, people come up to you and go, oh, man, I'm sorry. And then either they're sorry or they're not sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
So how the hell do you know?
No, you don't really know. But now let me go back to this, and I don't want to embarrass you again, but if Lorne Michaels, the guy who created the show, the guy who's kept the show in business all these years, it's his show. Mr. Big Shot, Mr. Table at Orso's, Lorne Michaels, why doesn't he step in? Why doesn't he throw himself in front of this gorilla to save your job? What's going on there?
With that?
It sounds to me like he's a quisling.
He is?
Well, that's what it sounds like.
Maybe we can get a dictionary at the break.
Didn't Lorne Michaels hire you?
Yes, he did.
Well, then who ought to be able to fire you?
Lorne Michaels,
right? So where was he? Did he fire you?
No, he didn't fire me.
But he's like your buddy, right? You're buddies with Lorne.
Yeah, he's a good man, and
now,
he's
what did he
always
say to you?
Been very supportive of me.
Well, I guess not. What did he say to you?
He said to me, he says, he said, look, Norm, this is the deal. You know? He said, I want you to stay on as Weekend Update.
Hang on. Stay right there. Think about it. We're going to get this straightened out. All right, Norm?
Norm Macdonald is here from Saturday Night Live.
What do you got there, Norm? You looked up quisling.
Yeah, I looked up
what does it
quisling. Quisling is a traitor who serves as the puppet of the enemy occupying his country.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. Norm Macdonald, you, sir, are no quisling.
I thought I was dumb when I didn't know what quisling was. I think I'm even dumber now because I still don't know what it is.
So now, Norm, a couple of things come to mind here. This seems so preposterous to me, so unfathomable, so unreasonable that I'm guessing, oh, it's like a stunt, like a publicity stunt, like big-time wrestling or something. Is that kind of deal? Where you and Don Ohlmeyer will have a feud and you'll wrestle on the show or something for your job, one of those deals?
No, I like Don Ohlmeyer.
Oh, no, how can you like... This weasel fired you!
No, but he doesn't think I'm funny.
And yet you like the man.
Sure, I mean, you know.
Here's what.
A lot of people don't think I'm funny.
Enjoy your complimentary beverage. Now, tomorrow night...
It ain't whiskey, but it's good.
Tomorrow night, come back on the show, or Friday night, come back on the show and do Weekend Update. You can do Weekend Update here. You can be the Weekend Update guy on this show.
That'd be great.
Well, there you go. Good. Now, who's taking your place on the Weekend Update?
I don't know. Apparently, they had some press release today, but I don't read the papers, that wasn't good either.
No, not if you're in charge of Weekend Update. To just blatantly admit that you don't know what's going on.
I did too many Nixon jokes.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you who's taking your place. Nobody can take your place, Norm Macdonald. That's what I think. You don't seem to be taking this too hard. You seem to be taking it pretty well.
Well, I mean, I don't know, because if somebody doesn't like you, then and they own the joint, you know, that's fine. I mean, I don't know.
Why would you want to work in that atmosphere? Why wouldn't you want to take a hike and say, well, I'll show you. I'll take my little Weekend Update someplace else and bury you punks?
I don't know. I guess I'm a damn quisling or something.
Norm, geez, I hope you land on your feet. I think you're going to, but you're going to be in part of the show anyway, right?
Yeah, I'll be doing, you know, things.
Yeah.
Now they're saying, oh, we'll put you in a whole bunch of sketches, which I don't want to be in, because
of course.
Then they're like, here, you're the scientist, and you're the scientist in charge of Monkey Boy or some damn thing. And, you know, and then I'm like running in going, hey, cheerleaders, what's going on? I haven't seen Monkey Boy, and I don't know how to...
That ain't a bad sketch, though, Norm.
That's true.
Well, that ain't bad. That's got possibilities. How's everything at home? Your mom all right?
She came to visit me in New York, you know.
That's nice.
And she's real sweet, you know. She doesn't know much about show business, you know, but she always tries, because she knows I'm in show business.
Right, yeah.
I mean, until tonight.
Well, Norm, I hope we've been able to get you through your darkest hour. And that I hope you somehow find the will to carry on. And normally this would be the time when we'd mention the show on Saturday night, but I'm so angry about this that I don't care about the show Saturday night, and neither should you.
Oh.
Good to see you, Norm.
Thank you, man.
Come back anytime. Norm Macdonald. We'll be right back.
He's a fucking great guy.
He's my hero.
I love him to death.
Fun, maybe one of the funniest guys on the planet. Dave Attell, Norm, in that. There's something about those two.
National treasures.
I agree, and the fact that he's not like the biggest comic of all time is weird.
Well, he is to us.
I guess so.
The comics, I mean, he's not the biggest, but the comics, he's on. The Mount Rushmore keeps getting bigger. It's
I know.
Four heads is not a good enough amount.
We got to stop using that thing.
Yeah, it's a bad thing to say, the Mount Rushmore, but in the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
That's the thing.
There you go.
That's it. He's in the Hall of Fame.
He's like on another level where he's invented certain things I never knew. Like he's taken comedy to this higher point, which I didn't know existed. I wish I could come up with an example.
He's another guy too that still does real comedy. Like when he goes on stage, he's fucking ballsy.
Yeah,
he swings.
I said to him, one of the hardest parts about doing Update for me was not telling every joke the way I thought Norm would tell it. Like I had to beat Norm's delivery out of me. It still sneaks in all the time, but I really had to keep an eye on it. And I told him how hard that part was to me. And he said, I'm so glad to hear you say that because my son was watching you on Update and said to me, you talk like Seth Meyers. And he told me that when he said that, he said, oh no, my son doesn't know how time works.
Yes, one of the funniest guys on the planet, one of my heroes, huge influence on me. I've seen everything. I watch his YouTube probably every other day. I just put it on.
When I first met you and I saw you, I was like, oh, he's doing like a Jerry Norm thing.
Yeah, completely.
Seinfeld and Norm, where you could always see who people were kind of influenced by in their first couple years. And for you, it was Norm Macdonald.
I think he's one of the funniest people. I mean, no one sounds like him. Amazing jokes, great takes, brilliant comic.
I believe Rosie O'Donnell was hosting SNL, and her very best friend, Penny Marshall, was there to support her. Penny Marshall, at the height of her movie director swag, is walking through the hallway with her head down, sunglasses on, baseball hat, doesn't want to be bothered. Treating all these basically writers and NBC employees and me and Norm as big timing us, pretending we're just looky-loos out on the street, right? Just doing a celebrity don't bother me moment. And Norm picks up on it and he just starts pointing and screaming, Laverne! 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 And she didn't look up. She never knew it was Norm. She's just gone.
He was so cool to me. Like, you know, and the thing he did that was the coolest thing that anyone can ever do is he knew my name before he needed to. Like, he just went, Bert Kreischer.
Yeah.
Hey. Taking the shirt off tonight, are we? Yeah. And I go, oh, he knows who I am.
SNL 40th was a few years ago. I got to stand on stage with Colin Quinn and Kevin Nealon and Norm. And the SNL 40th was a night where everyone just got a couple things to say. There were so many people there, and it was really limited. And I remember the four of us each had a little thing to say. I believe memory serves before we introduced Chevy. I think that was the role we were serving. And I remember we all said our line, myself and Colin and Kevin, and then Norm just started talking. And none of it was what he was supposed to say. And Wally, you were holding the cards. And I will say, I haven't seen this much in my years with Wally, but you did a thing where you actually looked at the cards in an effort to find. And I remember laughing really hard, not at what Norm was saying as much as the idea that any of us thought Norm would play by anyone else's rules on any night. He told me once that his favorite thing about SNL is you can still, it's like the last place on TV where you can bomb. And Norm said that was so great because by the time Update rolled around, if the show was bad, you could literally just go out there and bomb. And that both made that level of difficulty something that I think he really respected, and also he loved, or I should say, he just didn't care if he was bombing. If he thought the jokes were good, he had exactly as much fun telling them to a dead audience than to one who appreciated them. And I think for so many of us, we came up watching Norm and we thought that you were on the inside with him.
Remember when Dennis Miller would say a bunch of crazy shit that, like, no one could know. It would be like the most obscure references about like the 1400s.
He had a
and
tone.
fucking-
He had a tone that
yeah,
was a funny
like
reference.
you had to know what he was saying, or you were a fucking loser. I was on a plane with Norm Macdonald once, just randomly, and he sat next to me. He goes, "You know, he doesn't even know any of that stuff."
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, he just fucking finds out and writes it down, and he just says it. It's not like he knows it.
Norm on the Dennis Miller show is unreal.
Yeah, he's
There's some
unreal.
great clips.
Do you think advertising brings kids to smoking? You know, there's a lot of fight with the Joe Camel thing. Do you think they really?
Yeah, definitely they got it. Because the thing is this, the advertisers, they got to go after kids because they're not going to get adults. Like, there's not going to be a 50-year-old guy going, hey, I should start smoking. That goddamn Camel. Look at him. They got to get little children.
Joe Camel.
Yeah.
That's a frightening looking beast.
He looks like a cock. I didn't make this up. This is what I've noticed. He doesn't even look like a fucking camel. He looks so much like a cock. Because you know how it's usually subliminal?
Yeah.
Where you have to find the cock, right? This character, you have to find the goddamn camel.
What motivated you to quit?
Well, I guess I read this thing about how it was like a phallic symbol, and my doctor went in. He said, you probably have an oral fixation, which you know what that means. Let's not kid ourselves, right? So that's why I always smoke like cigarettes instead of cigars, because if I'm gonna have I like a little white thin cock, you know?
Are we back to cocks again?
I just want to make it clear about that cock thing. I was just saying, if I ever was gay, if they like suddenly made it mandatory or something, then I would choose the smallest cock, and I would like a guy that came fast. I don't know. I thought the subject was cock.
No, cocks is next week.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've seen episodes of The View. I've watched the.
I bet you have.
I definitely have. Like when Norm was on. Did you see when Norm
I
was on?
watched it when Donald Trump Jr. was on.
That was the best episode of The
What
View.
did Norm do with him?
Norm Macdonald
Norm says
is the greatest.
Norm at one point says, "I've never had consensual sex with a woman."
You like George Bush, don't you?
I love George Bush, man. He's a good man, decent. You know, none of this. He's not a liar, a crook, murderer, or anything like that. So it'd be good to get the. See, I think we should get the homicide out of the White House and get like a fresh start, because we don't want any more murderers.
I think we should just go on to the next question.
Oh.
Who's murderers? Yeah.
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
Yeah, you know, we're not allowed to, you're not allowed to put out no accusations without That's a proof, little darling. too far. That's the way it does work. Let's just go on to the next question. please. Now, Norm.
Do you never hear that?
No. Listen, Norm, we don't need I to don't talk want to get about into this, that. and I don't want to hear it, and this is not the place to make those accusations, and you're supposed to be funny. Let's get on to it. This is a live show. Why? Norm, but you have been properly chastised by Barbara, so I'm now going to ask the next question.
I thought it was a matter of record.
Shut up! Shut up! Look, Okay. let me do this, okay? I'll tell you what's a matter of record. You will not be invited back if you don't shut up.
All right, manslaughter.
Norm, did you ever hear the word? The phone is ringing. I certainly hope that's somebody calling to tell you to go home.
Oh, no.
Dude, you got a phone ringing. Norm.
What?
Okay. There's no stopping you, is there?
No, you seem to like Bill Clinton.
There really, and this, you are a number. I have never met anything like you. We will be right back.
You've seen that footage of him on the ESPYs, and people were so angry at the time because he's going after these athletes, and there was this sense of like, you can't do this, and he took so much shit for that. And then you look at it now, that's what the ESPYs has become. You know, the ESPYs now is like a lot of people doing jokes about
a roast.
A roast,
yeah.
But it became more that way. He just did that first.
You do a great job of always making me uncomfortable. When you hosted the ESPYs that one time.
Oh, you were there. I remember that.
Oh my God. You had jokes, but they weren't directed at me. I was uncomfortable and they weren't even directed at me.
Yeah, I have this thing where I don't even know when I do bad, but that happens to me a lot. I come off, I go, hey, that went pretty well, right? They're like, well, everyone left. I'm like, oh.
Just backstage, a lot of celebrities back there, man. I was talking to Jerry Jones, the Cowboys owner, and he's disappointed, obviously. But he's a good guy, though, man. He's talking about rebuilding the team, And he told me, he says, we have to get back to what made us a championship team. Strippers and crack. I was watching last night, I saw speed skating, and my goodness, could the outfits they wear be any tighter? Holy Lord. There was an East German woman, I swear, you could see the outline of her entire penis. It was... And there's Charles Woodson. How about that? What a season he had. Great, man. He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and the waiter, in which case... all bets are off.
He was doing things that really were brave, and he paid the price for it.
Yeah.
He took a lot of heat. We got the word came down, you can't book Norm Macdonald anymore. And it came from the top, from Don Ohlmeyer. Don Ohlmeyer was the one that Lorne suggested me for late night. He gave me the job, and so I had a lot of feelings of loyalty to Don Ohlmeyer because I wouldn't be here right now if it weren't for Don sticking with me. So I wrote a letter to Don that said, I got this directive. You've hired me to do the best show I can do, and this is my best guest.